Our next shortlisted painting is by another Irish artist, William Leech. It's a beautiful work of spiritual meditation. The model for the young novice was the artist's first wife, Elizabeth Soreen.
Well, Leech was from Dublin. His father was an academic in Trinity College. He trained also in the Metropolitan School, where he proved himself to be a consummate technician. And then also, as so many of the previous generation had done, travelled to France. Well, he had trained under Walter Osborne, who had such first-hand experience of French art, and France really was key in the development of his art.
French artists and the post-impressionists, they went to Brittany, where they discovered the way of rural life and customs that still existed. So it was the thing for artists who were interested in the modern movement, in modern tendencies in painting, to go and work outside and work in France in particular. Certainly by the turn of the century, it was very much Brittany was the place to go. Once he was there in 1904, he got typhus. It wouldn't have been uncommon. And he was nursed to good health in a hospital in Brittany run by nuns. And it was as a consequence of encountering the nuns during his convalescence that he decided that he'd make a painting. Since she's wearing her wedding gown, which is a traditional Breton wedding gown that the country people, the peasantry, wore. So that painting must be on the day she is about to take her vows or has just taken her vows. She's about to become a full nun. But there's a light, there's purity. It was obviously done from life, out on location. Now, it may have been finished in the studio. I'm not sure, because even though the paint strokes are very thick and juicy, and the light is fantastic, and there's a lot of activity, if you look carefully at the strokes, there are not many that are sitting on top of the other. He's pre-planned the painting, so each thick impasto stroke sits side by another one. So you can see that the whole thing was very, very carefully planned, probably drawn out carefully, and then put in. So I would imagine that Leech did a lot of research for that particular painting.
It's interesting that Leech is identified perhaps less as an Irish artist, not because he's identified terribly closely with anywhere else, but because he was relatively reclusive. He was quite open about this, and certainly he would refer to himself as a recluse. So even though he was living in England, he'd essentially left Ireland quite early. It's his art that really survives as the testament to his skill.
Just the light, that beautiful, bright, open light, the yellowy greens, the garden, the early summer feel to it, the shimmering costume of the novice's bridal gown. It glows. You could almost, in a winter's day, sometimes when I'm in the National Gallery and I'm looking at it, I feel like putting my hands in front of it. Oh, yes. Would have been fantastic if his work had a higher profile in Ireland in the early 20th century, but it didn't. He's a painter, I think, that a small group of artists and admirers would have been very aware of, but the general public wouldn't have. And he's an artist that, in lots of ways, has been rediscovered by the Irish public and by Irish artists in the past 30, 40 years.